Greetings, duelists, and welcome to another video. So this will be my first deck report post Age of Overlord. The deck I'll be doing it with or showcasing it with is with the Labrynth Unchained deck. As probably some of you already seen, or if you haven't seen like prior to this, I did make a couple of videos on this deck already. I already explained like a lot of things that are going on, like with this deck as a whole, and like I just kind of want to do like a very detailed report of how my matches and games were done against specific matchups, and I'll talk about the events that I've played in and things that we can do with this deck moving forward. Um, but yeah, uh, without further ado, let's begin. I separated it into categories. Basically, since we've already seen the deck already, at least some of you have, just going to go and stream them Diamond Claws. So for the Labyrinths, we have 3 Ariana, 3 Stovey, 3 Chandelier, 2 Lady, Cool Clock, Butler, Lovely. That's it for the monsters. Traps, 1 welcome, 3 big welcome. That's it for all the Labyrinth cards. Unchained cards. Aruha, Shavara, Chiyama, Abom, Sarama, 3 Prison, 3 Chamber. I'll explain that later. To escape. That's it for the Unchained. Miscellaneous cards. 3 Prosperities, 3 Imperms, Karma Cannon, and Skill Drain. Main deck is 43. 14 traps, 6 spells, 23 monsters. Extra deck. 2 Yamas, 2 Rage, 1 Anguish, 1 Abomination, SP, Muck, Unicorn, Griffin, Goddess, Angel, Hiking, Zeus, one of the MVPs of the extra deck. I'll explain that later. Typhon. So, before I cover the side deck, I should talk about like the events that I went to and what did I do, like after the initial testing with the deck. So, yesterday, at the time of this recording, it was yesterday on the 28th. We've had a really big event called First Attack. It's basically a fighting game tournament that they hold in the one of the main conventions in Puerto Rico. They do it every year, around this year. And this was the first time ever where they incorporated Yu-Gi-Oh as one of the main games to be competitive at the event. It was a really, really big deal. A lot of players went to that event. It almost felt like a regionals. Like we had around 127 players, if I am not mistaken. It was close to that number. There was a lot of advertising. There was a lot of good rounds. Like a lot of it was a lot of explanations in between. Uh, it was 7 rounds of Swiss. Uh, Before that event, a lot of people were scrambling on what deck they would play for that event because this event was known for months in advance. But the thing that people needed to be prepared for it was our first major event here, like post Age of Overlord. And that is a really, really big deal because it's only been 1 week since that set has came out, and there are still things people are figuring out when it comes to like the diversity of the format and like the playability behind all the decks and strategies that we have in the game. Uh, that being said, uh, the event was run super smoothly. There was a lot of deck diversity. I'll talk about what happened before that event. I went to locals with this deck. I ended up 4-1. My only loss was against Pure Unchained, and it was because of a very, very, very crucial misplay that I did that really costed me the game. Um, if it wasn't for that, I pretty much would have finished 5-0. But I will say the truth how it is. Basically, the scenario was he had two monsters on board, and I top decked Ariana, and I had Big Welcome in graveyard, and I had Stovey in the graveyard. So, for those familiar and saw like my last combo video, that's pretty much full Unchained combo. However, before I did the full combo, uh, I had both Cool Clock and uh, the Lovely Labrynth on board, and I chose to attack one of the set monsters because he had two cards in hand, and I wanted to make sure that if I ended up getting hand trapped, I at least got rid of one of their monsters on the board, meaning that they are in top deck mode and they pretty much have to open any specific card for them to win the game because the only other set monster was a Rakea. That pretty much Rakea does nothing by itself. Uh, I attacked into his set Chiyama, and he activated Abominable Unchained Soul from his hand, summoned it, and then used this effect and killed the Lovely Labrynth. Uh, you can make the argument that I lost to one very, very specific card. Like, if that card would have been any other card in his deck, he probably would have lost that game. However, I did walk into it, and I should have taken the risk of just keep comboing off despite him having two unknown cards in his hand. And I already knew that he was on Ash Blossom and on Nibiru because he did activated those cards in one of the three games that we had. Uh, so let me know in the comments like if you think me attacking this set monster was the right choice or not. Because that was a very, very specific scenario. I literally lost to like a 4% chance just because I didn't want to take the risk of getting hand trapped and just losing the game anyway. Um, but yeah, that's what happened on Thursday. So my record was 4-1. I ended up second place, locals. Now let's talk about the first attack. So in the first attack, my record was 4-1-2. So 4 wins, 1 loss, 2 draws. My matchups were branded, uh, the branded Chimera deck, Purely, Labrynth, Vanadium, and 3 Tier Limits. Uh, both my draws and my 1 loss were all to the same deck. They were all to Tier Limits. I won all the other matchups. Um, and I guess I should talk about that a little bit. Um, the first thing is I didn't side deck properly for them. I guess I'll show you side deck while I'm talking about that matchup and how it went, and I'll go into more details. So for side deck, we had Ash, Droll, Thrust, Talents, Duster, Mistaken Arrest, Herald of the Abyss, and Evenly Matched. So outside of Mistaken Arrest, and maybe you can make the argument for the hand traps, I didn't have anything real for Tier Elements. Like I didn't have like really dedicated cards that could actually outright just beat the matchup, like Dimension Shifter or DD Crow, just to name 1 or 2 examples. In hindsight, maybe in the future, if I were to play this deck again, I should heavily side more for Tier Elements. I didn't think I would face enough Tier Elements at that event, but I did, and that's what costed me pretty much my like top contention status. Um, I felt like against any other deck in the room, this deck had a really like understandable matchup. Uh, I felt like against Rescue Ace, this deck was fine because Labrynth is naturally good against like Rescue Ace in the first place. Against like regular Unchained, I think I was fine as well. Like it is strong against like this hybrid because the Labrynth cards do work well against Unchained. However, if you just manage your resources properly, you should be fine against the matchup. Like more than that. Against Purely, like I did have a few cards for Purely, like for example this and these. And if I go first, like this card outright just kills the matchup. Um, Against the more roguish deck, I felt like these hand traps would do like very well. Vanadium was the one deck I was actually afraid of, which is one of the reasons Droll is in my side deck. In testing, I have lost against that deck numerous amount of times, but I did win my one Vanadium matchup, and I'm just gonna say it outright. This card pretty much won me that duel. This also won me my match against Branded Chimera. Like this card is just phenomenal. But yeah, that was my experience on that event. Uh, cool stuff that happened this weekend. So one really cool thing that happened was I did summon Chaos Angel more than once in a turn. What ended up happening is I summoned Chaos Angel, and then I linked it away. I summoned Muck, and then Muck brought back the Chaos Angel, and then later on I overlaid it onto Typhon, detached it, and in the following turn, after they were forced to kill my Typhon, I used Jama's effect in the graveyard and banished it to resummon the Chaos Angel. It just banished one of their cards. So that was something really cool that happened that weekend. Prior to the first attack event, I did not summon Malcracker at all. At the first attack event, I summoned her 3 times. So for the longest time, I didn't know if this card was even usable in my extra deck, but I'm really glad it came up. This card was really, really phenomenal. Her bringing back Typhon actually won me a game against like I think it was like the Branded Chimera player. Uh, and one of the tier games where I tied, I also did that. They couldn't get rid of it. So that's something really cool that happened. Something else that really happened was against the Vanadium player. I linked away. I pretty much linked for Yama, then linked for Rage, then summoned Typhon over the Rage. I detached the Rage, and then on the following turn, what ended up happening was I activated Chamber, and this is one of the reasons Chamber is a 3 in this deck. I used Chamber, bring back the Rage, and then linked away the Rage into the SP Little Knight, just to like picked apart like their entire board. And they couldn't do anything with their Baron or their Dispatter or their like Sword Soul guy because the Typhon was on the board. So that was something really cool that happened. Um, Other cool things to note. I think those were like the more interesting ones. Um, I summoned Anguish a lot and link away Anguish just for Rage. I did do that a bunch of times. I only summoned the SP once, and was that Typhon game that I mentioned. Outside of that, I didn't summon this at all. So uh, you shouldn't fear this. You shouldn't fear not having this card in order to build this deck. Um, I never summoned Unicorn though. I will say that. Maybe it's probably because SP is there. Unicorn is mainly here if you get a Fiend locked with Sharvara or with a Ruha, and you need to just summon something using Anguish or Rage to just get rid of cards on your opponent's board. That's mainly what Unicorn is here. Um, Never summoned Griffin. Never summoned Abominable. I summoned Goddess once against Tier Elements. It was very helpful that game, and then I overlaid the Goddess into Typhon. That did happen, uh, and that helped me pick apart the entire board. Um, I never summoned Zeus. That never happened. I summoned this. However, however, what's interesting is I did not use two Unchained monsters for this. I actually ended up summoning this twice, and it was because of Arias. Arias being level 6 actually did come up. I summoned her once with Welcome Labrynth to make the Weave Caesar, and another time was my opponent reacted to an Ariana summon, and then I ended up summoning the Arias. Uh, the second time, like, using Arias to summon Ariana is really, really strong because if they end up responding to this and you go first, you can make the Unchained Yama. But if you're going second, you can just summon Chaos Angel and just like start picking apart their interactions. And that did actually come up. So now that I talked about like stuff that happened at the event, um, out of all the decks that I had available, why did I pick this one? So I the other two options that I kind of wanted to play were either Virtual World or Punktistina. I did not own all the cards for both decks, so I stuck to the deck where I actually had all the cards available, and this was the one that stood out the most. So I already explained on past videos like this deck as a concept. However, uh, what I'm going to do now is explain the theory behind actually playing this deck in the established metagame environment that we're at. Right now, we're in a metagame where it's extremely diverse. There's a lot of decks that are like very popular in the format, and the people who can play the deck that can do as well with their engine the most is the deck that's going to be doing very well this format. That's why Rescue Ace is really, really strong, and that's why Purely and like Pure Elements and Unchained are really, really strong. Other options that are just as close to Rescue. Um, I think moving forward, we might see Labrynth be played a little bit more. I think Tier Elements is just going to like keep being played a lot more in the future. Uh, but yeah, pretty much my ideology behind the deck itself is that we're playing basically two decks at once. We're playing both Labrynth and we're playing both Unchained. So pretty much you're covering most of your bases with playing two decks in one. Because anything that is weak to the Labrynth deck, you can just do your Labrynth plays into. But decks that are weaker into Unchained, you can use your Unchained cards into. There will be scenarios like Tier Elements where it could be strong against both matchups. And that is something that we kind of have to take, unfortunately. But I feel like instead of like just cramming non-engine into just one archetype, uh, playing a hybrid is not the worst idea in the world because Unchained is already naturally strong even without playing hand traps. And I just felt like playing another strategy to just fit into what the deck can do and give it another dynamic just really, really like aids the deck like outright. Um, so thoughts of the deck moving forward. I think the tier limit matchup is not that good. Like the only reason I did not top the first attack event was mainly due to like my unfortunate draws and the amount of variance that happened with the tier limit deck. Some of my losses were just really out of my control. Like I one of the tier games I drew because they summoned Winda, Toad, Kaleido, Soliac on me, and I didn't have a proper out for that. Like Winda is naturally strong against this archetype as a whole. Unchained already struggles against Winda, and Labrynth is not that good against an established board that has interruptions when they're going second. Uh, Another loss that I had to tier limits was because one of them flipped TC Boo on me. The entire deck is Fiend. Uh, TC Boo is not the hardest card to play around. However, if they have TC Boo plus other cards that really just stop your plans, like I lost to Charles to Javier, he's a fellow EJ Gaming team member. Uh, the main reason I lost that game against him was because not only did he have TC Boo, but he had Mudora to play around the cards that I had in my graveyard, and that was really really problematic for me. It means that I pretty much lose on my follow up. I lose on like a game plan if I try to get rid of the floodgate. It means that I couldn't play like with my strategy going forward if I didn't have all the proper extenders, and while dealing with the said floodgate. Um, I lost one game to tier because I got rid of his Horus engine. He had three cards on in hand. I sniped with the lovely Labrynth effect, and the three cards that he had in his hand, I already knew all three cards. It was Rhino Heart, Pearl Rhino, and another King Sarcophagus. He already used his Horus effects in the turn, so hitting the King Sarcophagus was not going to do affect anything. I ended up hitting the King Sarcophagus. And that lost me the game because both the Pearl Rhino and the Rhino Heart made it so he could actually play the tier lemon game and just like out resource me. If I would have hit either uh, Rhino Heart or the Pearl Rhino, I would have won that match. But sadly, it is variance. I lost to a 33%. Um, it's just stuff that happens. Overall, did I enjoy this deck? Yes, I did. Would I play this more in the future? Probably yes. If I do have other chances for it. Will I just keep playing this deck for entire format? Definitely not. I think we're in a very very experimental format. I think that as the format shapes up and more of the decks that we know about are being played, and depending on what happens like in my local area, I should just start switching strategies. This is not a bad format for you to experiment many different decks. However, this is a really bad format if you're not prepared for as many decks as possible. Uh, and I just felt like in theory this deck was really really good at what it needed to do in a format that we have like this one. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much it. That's it for explanations. I hope you found this video informative. I hope you found this to your liking. More profiles coming soon. More deck ideas coming soon. Uh, as I said, I already picked up a bunch of the Tistina cards. I still need to pick up stuff for Virtual World, but those are probably going to be the other two decks I'll be experimenting with. Shout out to Jose Munoz if you're watching this. He did top the first attack event with Vanquish Soul. I might have his profile here in the future. Who knows? Let me know if you guys are interested. That would be very, very good to see. Vanquish Soul is another option that I could play this format, especially like since not many people are prepared for it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Keep practicing and keep dueling.